I never thought I'd be scrubbing blood off the marble floor with a sponge and a bucket of bleach. Not my blood, thank God. But it felt like it was mine. It felt like every drop was a memory I needed to erase. The apartment was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A view of the entire city that just screamed, "You won." I didn't win. I stood there, wearing a pair of expensive silk pajamas, the bleach fumes stinging my eyes, and I knew I had lost everything that mattered. The kind of loss you can't declare on a tax form. Just a few months earlier, the noise in this apartment was different. It was the sound of success. The click-clack of mechanical keyboards running all night. The constant, low hum of the servers tucked away in the closet. The endless chime of notifications, each one meaning another $10, $20, $50,000. My name is Alex. When I was 16, I thought I could solve the world. By 20, I thought I could own it. The problem wasn't the money. The money was the easy part. The problem was what the money brought with it. The speed. The isolation. The betrayal. It started with a text message. A single, cryptic line that flashed on the largest monitor, the one I called the God monitor. It just said, "It's gone." All of it. My entire life's work. My net worth. The algorithm that was supposed to lift me out of the dirt forever. I remember laughing. A thin, reedy sound that didn't belong in that penthouse. It was a joke, right? A sick, elaborate hack. I was untouchable. My code was a fortress. But the servers were quiet. The hum had stopped. And the wallet address, the one I had memorized like my own birthday, showed a perfect, brutal 0. The panic wasn't a rush. It was a cold, slow flood. It felt like all the oxygen left the room. My chest tightened until it felt like a granite block. I ran to the closet, threw open the door. The servers, custom-built, quiet, powerful. I slapped the side of the main box. Nothing. I didn't just lose the money. I lost the control. The certainty that I was the smartest person in the room. The belief that my genius could protect me. I fell to my knees right there, beside the expensive, humming servers that had failed me, and I didn't weep. I just stared at the marble. I watched the dust motes dancing in the sunrise. And I felt the familiar, crushing weight of the projects I'd never finished, the rent my mother had paid, the quiet desperation of a poor kid with $1 million brain. The blood on the floor wasn't mine. It was a remnant of the fight. The final, explosive argument that happened when the zeros vanished and the truth came out. The truth about Leo. He was my closest friend. My only partner. The one person who knew the genius, the flaws, and the secret code inside my head. The one person who had access. And he was gone. Along with the funds. Along with the key. That morning, as the city woke up beneath my feet, all I had left was the smell of bleach, a crippling silence, and one terrifying, unavoidable question. How did I not see it coming? To understand the crash, you have to understand the beginning. And the beginning wasn't a sleek startup office. It was a dank little cyber cafe named The Connection, tucked away in the roughest part of town. It smelled like stale coffee, cheap pizza, and desperation. The PCs were dinosaurs. But they had one thing I needed: unlimited internet. My mom worked 2 jobs just to keep a roof over our heads. We lived paycheck to paycheck. No extras. No new computers. Just the constant, low-level thrum of financial fear. So, after school, while other kids were playing sports or just being kids, I was at The Connection. From 3 p.m. until the owner kicked me out at midnight. I wasn't playing games. I was learning. C++, Python, assembly. I was a sponge. The internet was my university, and the free Wi-Fi was my scholarship. I was obsessed with blockchain. Not the hype, but the math. The pure, beautiful, complex math of distributed ledgers. Felt like the perfect code. Unhackable. Immutable. A system that didn't care who you were or where you came from. Only about the logic. I started seeing patterns. Fluctuations that looked like noise to everyone else were, to me, like a symphony. I could almost hear the market breathing. The constant push and pull of fear and greed. I decided to build a bot. A simple script at first. Just a tracker. Then a predictor. I called it Icarus. A dumb name looking back. I should have seen the warning sign in the mythology. Icarus was my escape hatch. My ticket out. It was a trading algorithm that didn't just follow the trends. It calculated the human element. The moments of collective doubt, the panic selling, the euphoria. I tested it on paper for months. Every prediction was spot on. When I finally put $50 of my meager savings into a live account, the feeling was electric. The first trade, a $2 profit. Then $10. Then $100. It wasn't fast, but it was relentless. It never lost. It never doubted. It just followed the logic. Then came the great crypto winter. The market didn't just correct. It imploded. People were losing their life savings in minutes. News channels were running fear-mongering stories 24/7. The panic was total. But Icarus didn't panic. I watched, frozen in my chair in that dimly lit cafe, as the major coins plummeted. While every other bot, every major investment fund, every amateur trader was liquidated, Icarus did something unbelievable. It doubled down on shorts. It had predicted the mass panic. It had seen the pattern of total collapse and had executed perfectly. When the dust settled, the account that started with $50 was worth nearly $40,000. That's when the cafe owner Leo walked over. He was a few years older than me. Clean cut. Always wore a nice watch even though his business was failing. He saw the screen. He saw the zeros. He didn't ask how I did it. He just asked, "How much bigger can it get?" Leo was my first mistake. He was smooth. He had the confidence I lacked. The way he talked about business, about investors, about scaling up, it was a world away from my code and my cramped apartment. I was the genius locked in the engine room. He was the salesman with the key to the main deck. He convinced me to partner up. My code, his connections. We shook hands in the back alley. A $40,000 account and a handshake. The classic, tragic startup story. Leo brought the money. Not a little, but a lot. He leveraged everything. Took out loans. Convinced old contacts he had a guaranteed winner. Suddenly the cafe was gone. We moved into a small rented office. Then a bigger one. The speed of the money was intoxicating. It was everything I had ever wanted. I bought my mom a small house. Paid off every debt. That moment, when I handed her the deed, was the purest victory I've ever tasted. I thought I did it. I won. But the system wasn't built to handle the sheer volume of wealth we were generating. We were making millions, but Leo was spending faster. He insisted we needed to look the part. The penthouse, the private cars, the ridiculous suits. He called it signaling. I didn't care about the suits. I cared about the code. I spent my days refining Icarus, building new defenses, making it faster, more efficient. I had to ensure it could handle the increasing capital. The pressure was immense. I stopped sleeping. 4 hours a night became a luxury. I drank coffee like it was air. I was isolated, staring at numbers, while Leo was out charming investors, throwing parties, and living the life I'd engineered. The isolation became a problem. I started to rely on Leo for everything non-technical. He handled the bank accounts, the legal structures, the investors. He became the gatekeeper. And the more I trusted him with the real world, the more he separated me from it. One night, an investor cornered me at a party. A loud, oily man named Mr. Chin. Mr. Chin said, "You're the kid with the magic box, right? Tell me, why am I only seeing half the returns Leo promised?" I was confused. "The performance reports are all on the dashboard, sir. Icarus has been delivering a 40% monthly return." Mr. Chin laughed, a cold, dry sound. "Leo told me 20%. And that the other 20% was going into a holding fund for future tax liabilities." My heart dropped. The numbers didn't match. Leo was skimming. When I confronted him back at the penthouse, he didn't even flinch. He just poured himself a ridiculously expensive glass of whiskey. "It's called overhead, Alex. It's called managing expectations. You think these sharks give you millions because they like your code? They want a return. I deliver a solid return, and the rest is my compensation for handling their ego. It's fraud, Leo. It's lying. And it puts the whole fund at risk," I whispered. "No, Alex. It's business. Your problem is you only see code. I see humans. And humans are greedy. I'm just helping them get what they want and taking my piece." That night, the partnership died, but the business couldn't. Not yet. We were too deep. Too many investors. Too much money. I couldn't just walk away. If I did, the whole thing would collapse and my name would be tied to a financial disaster. I was trapped. Trapped by my own genius and his greed. The fear was a physical ache in my gut. I was living in a gilded cage, knowing the bars were slowly closing in. The realization that I was working for a criminal, even if it was a sophisticated one, was crushing. My genius, my creation, was being used to lie and steal. It felt like a fundamental betrayal of the logic I loved. I couldn't report him. Leo had insulated himself. All the official documents, the shell corporations, the legal jargon, it was all designed to point the blame at the code and, by extension, at me. I knew I had to get out, but I couldn't just run. I had to dismantle my own creation from the inside out and protect the few things that mattered: my mother and my own integrity. I became paranoid. I set up hidden logging systems in Icarus. Not just logging the trades but logging Leo's access, his wallet movements and his communications. I built a digital shadow of his every move. This was a small victory, a reclaiming of control. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about proof. I stopped talking to him except for necessary business updates. The air in the penthouse was toxic, thick with unspoken accusations and mutual distrust. Then one rainy Tuesday the real problem emerged. It wasn't Leo. A large, sustained attack hit the network. It wasn't a standard botnet or a denial of service. It was sophisticated. It was trying to brute force the seed phrase, the master key to the crypto wallet where the entire fund, all the millions, was held. I spent 48 hours straight fighting it. No sleep. Just code, coffee, and sheer terror. I realized this wasn't a random hacker. This was organized. Someone outside, powerful, had noticed the massive, predictable returns of Icarus and wanted a piece of the pie. Or more accurately, the entire pie. I managed to repel the attack, but the message was clear. My fortress was breached. The near loss of everything forced a reckoning. I needed help. Not coding help, but human help. I drove out to my mother's small, quiet house. She was watering her potted plants, wearing an apron, looking like the only thing real left in my life. I sat her down and told her everything. Not the complexities of blockchain, but the simple, ugly truth. The bot works. We're rich. But the partner is a liar, the business is built on sand, and powerful people are coming for all of it. I expected disappointment. Yelling. Tears. She just looked at me, her eyes tired but steady. Alex, she said. You've always been brilliant. But you think life is a puzzle you can solve with a clean line of code. It's not. It's messy. It's people. And people, they break the rules. Then she said the single most important thing, money comes and money goes. But your name stays. That was my turning point. That wasn't just a mother's advice. It was a clear moral instruction. I went back to the penthouse with a plan. I wasn't going to save the fund. I was going to liquidate it ethically. I moved the entire fund, hundreds of millions, into a newly created, unlisted, multi-sig wallet. It took a full night. Leo had no idea. The complexity of the move was too great for him to follow. I kept the seed phrase split into 3 parts. One piece locked away, one encrypted on a USB drive, and the third piece, a single coded word only in my head. Then I faced Leo. I told him I was shutting it down. The risk is too high. The attack was a warning. We liquidate, return the investor's principal, and take our earned commission. We walk away clean. Leo exploded. He threw a bottle of champagne against the wall. That's where the blood came from, not a fight but the shattered glass cutting his forearm. Clean? I'm not walking away with crumbs, you idiot. We are days away from the biggest valuation in history. You're going to ruin everything because of some ethical crisis. The ethical crisis is you, Leo. I have the fund locked down. You can't touch it. If you try anything, the money goes into a legal escrow I've already established, and the entire operation will be subject to a forensic audit. His eyes went cold. He didn't threaten me. He just stood there, breathing hard, looking at me not as a partner but as a problem. You always were too smart for your own good, Alex. But the smart ones are always the easiest to fool. That's when I realized he knew something I didn't. The paranoia spiked. I had locked down the money, but he still had access to something. But what? I went back to my logs. The digital shadow. I tracked his movements outside the firm. He hadn't been meeting with investors. He had been meeting with a lawyer. A very specific kind of lawyer. A criminal defense specialist. But that wasn't the final piece. The final piece was in the code I had so ruthlessly protected. The core of Icarus. I had built a simple, redundant backdoor. A single line of code, meant for emergency recovery, that allowed an authorized user to bypass the standard multi-factor authentication. I had given Leo the key to that backdoor the night we shook hands in the alley. It was a symbol of trust. A single, encrypted string of text. He hadn't been trying to access the money. He had been trying to access the algorithm. The genius. If he had Icarus, he didn't need me. He could take it, replicate the infrastructure, and restart the whole scam somewhere else, leaving me holding the bag for all the existing fraud. I looked at the clock. I had maybe an hour before his lawyer finalized whatever document they were creating. I had to delete Icarus. Not just a copy but the entire master repository. Burn the bridge. Scorch the earth. But doing that meant eliminating the one thing that defined me. The thing that saved my mother. The thing that made me a genius. This was the ultimate moment of truth. My creation or my freedom. I didn't hesitate. Not for long. The fear was still there, the terror of becoming a nobody again, but it was overshadowed by a cold, clear purpose. I opened the master repository. I saw the thousands of lines of code, the elegance, the years of sleepless nights. It was beautiful. It was mine. I started the deletion script. It wasn't instantaneous. I watched the lines of my life's work scroll across the screen, disappearing one by one. The delete command felt like a physical wrenching in my chest. Leo burst back into the apartment. He saw the screen. He saw the log. "What have you done?" His voice was ragged. All the smooth confidence was gone. He looked like a cornered animal. "I ended it, Leo. I burned the bridge. No one gets it. Not you, not the hackers, not the lawyers. It's gone." He lunged for the keyboard. I slammed my hand down on the enter key, completing the deletion and executing the final line of code. A self-destruct script that wiped the server logs and encrypted the hard drives with a key I immediately destroyed. The silence that followed was immense. The server hum stopped entirely. The God monitor went blank. Leo didn't try to hit me. He just stood there, staring at the blank screen, his face a mask of total devastation. He had been so close to inheriting a multi-million-dollar perpetual money machine. "You're an idiot," he finally spat out. "You're back where you started. You're a poor kid in a rich apartment." "No," I said, meeting his gaze. "I'm a free kid in a rich apartment." I called the police. I had my logs, the hidden ones, encrypted and ready. The logs detailing his skimming, the fraud, and the recent attack attempts. When the officers arrived, they found me calm, composed, and ready to hand over my evidence. They found Leo hysterical, trying to talk his way out of a mountain of digital proof. It was messy. Weeks of lawyers, subpoenas, and audits. I cooperated fully. I used the money from the liquidated principal to pay for the initial legal fees and to ensure the investors were returned their original capital. They lost their promised returns, but they kept their principal. It was the only ethical way out. The media called me a genius, a whistleblower, and a fool. I didn't care. In the end, I walked away with almost nothing. The apartment was seized. The cars were sold. The millions went back to where they came from. The only thing I kept was the house for my mother. The quiet after the storm was deafening. I moved out of the city and into a small rented room near my mom's place. I traded the panoramic view for a simple desk, a second-hand laptop, and the sound of my mother's voice asking if I wanted soup. I was 21 years old. I had been a multimillionaire, a high-tech fraudster's puppet, and a hero, all in the space of 3 years. The true resolution wasn't in the bank balance. It was in the realization of the lesson. The genius that created Icarus was a logic engine. It saw patterns, but it didn't see value. It chased zeros and ignored the humans behind the transactions. My biggest mistake wasn't building the bot. It was believing that the complexity of the code could solve the simplicity of the human heart. Greed is a simple script. Trust is a vulnerability. I'm not a millionaire anymore. I work as a consultant helping small nonprofits secure their data. It's boring. It's necessary. It's ethical. I still code. But the code I write now is different. It's about security. It's about building walls to protect people, not algorithms to profit from them. I didn't need to be rich. I needed to be meaningful. The trauma of the penthouse, the betrayal, and the loss taught me something more valuable than any algorithm. The ultimate measure of success is not what you accumulate, but what you refuse to compromise. I didn't become rich. I became free. Free from the code. Free from the lie. Free from the fear of being poor, because I realized that the true poverty was living a brilliant, lucrative lie. And that freedom is worth more than all the crypto in the world. I look at my hands now and they are clean. The blood is gone. The silence is finally peaceful. And for the first time in my life, I'm ready to start building something that can't be bought, hacked, or taken away. Something real. So where are you right now? What brilliant trap are you building for yourself? It's not about the money, not really. It's about deciding what you're willing to burn to save your soul. Don't wait for the crash. Start deleting the lines of code that trap you today.